Through his leadership, they were also able to do some legislation that helped that. So he had to advocate on that behalf. So together, these organizations with me today are showing that health and well-being are possibilities that are made real through community efforts and community partnerships. So as we move through the conversation, we're going to hear some of their stories. So to start us off, I'm going to start with Miss Vickie. We're going to talk about the heart. I think the theme of what we did today was heart, right? Heart and compassion and showing up for folks where they're at. So Vickie, what story comes to mind that shows how Kitchen Restore truly makes a difference for the families within your community?
Well, first of all, I think you all need a Starbucks certificate because you stayed for the last session for the day. So, woo-woo! I don't have those for you, but thank you for staying. And sincerely, thank you for those that did bring items for Kitchen Restore today. I have a lot of stories, but one I'm going to share with you is I'd ask you to get in your mind the types of families that we may be helping. Family that's had a fire and has been displaced, a divorce, critical illness. Maybe the husband has been transferred, maybe far away. We have a lot of military families here. So the mom and children move here and they don't bring anything because they don't have the money to bring it. So we have lots of different things. So my story I want to share, though, is we're also a resettlement community. So we have many, probably several hundred now, families that are here from war-torn countries. They come with the clothes on their back. So one of my stories is that an interpreter who could speak Pasha spoke with a family, and the mom shared, and then the story was relayed to me. And the story is, please tell Miss Vickie, they all call me that, I don't know why. Please tell Miss Vickie, we have a house, we have shoes, we have children going to school, we have tea. They love to have people come and visit and share, and so tea is important. We have now food, and you gave us large pots to cook our rice, which we need daily, and you gave us many pans to cook bread. And her final words are, we are home. That's why I get up and do this every day. That's my story. Let's stick into it.
I love it, Vickie. Thank you. And if you'll pass the mic to Jay and Leanne, I have kind of the same question, and I know both of you come from different perspectives, so I would like both of you to kind of answer this question. But can you tell us about someone whose life has changed because of the services that Solomon Valley Transportation has provided?
Well, for me, my desire for general transportation or public transportation started when I was in high school, and I worked at the local grocery store in the town I graduated from, and the elderly people, widowed people, widowers, would call and place their grocery order, and it would be a half a dozen eggs, a quart of orange juice, you know, things like that. And so we would gather their stuff up and ring it up, and then we would take it to their house. And the only reason that they weren't able to come to the store themselves is they had no means of transportation and no family to bring them. And I graduated in Mankato. For any of you guys that know Mankato, it's a small town, and but these people were fully capable of staying in their home and living on their own. They just didn't have any way of getting to the grocery store. And honestly, I'm in my 50s and have a child. I have children, married, have grandchildren, but that still stuck with me. So knowing that we can help people remain in their home, and they can still go to the grocery store, they can go to the post office, they can go to the bank, and they can do it all on their own without having to rely on their family or simply not go at all. That's the story that sticks with me. Yes, it is healthcare driven too, but we are general public transportation. So we can't delineate only healthcare needs come first. It's first come, first serve, and it's whoever calls. If we have availability, we will take you. So that's the part that hits home for me.
I'm Jay Rowh, and I'm a retired teacher, and I'm obviously the oldest one in the room. And you guys have been a mystery to me all day, so I'm definitely out of my comfort zone here. But I've been really impressed with everything going on. From a standpoint of Solomon Valley Transportation, I'm also a Kansas silver-haired legislator. And everything we do in SHL is predicated on the thought that we want people to be able to stay in their own homes as long as they can and as long as they want to. We don't want people when they reach a certain age to, quote, have to go move where the kids are because they're a prisoner in their own home if they don't have some form of having a lifestyle like they had before, of going to doctors, going to grocery stores, going to card games, going to beauty shops. We want them to have a lifestyle that they're comfortable with as long as they want to do that. And so that's, to me, what SVT is about. And another good example, like she was saying, we just had our silver-haired annual session in Topeka 2 weeks ago. And I go down early to help set up, and so I'm there for several days. My wife is not interested in that at all. And so she has SVT bring her to Topeka Wednesday for our banquet, and then she can ride home with me on Thursday. That's what having public transportation that can get you where you need to go allows you to do, and we want to continue that.
Thank you. And then, of course, last but not least, Tony, can you share a moment that reminds you of why you started Kansas Hunters Feeding the Hungry?
Why I started? You touched on with Katie.
You may be. Is it on? That little button right there.
There we go. I shared with Katie earlier that, the term that she used earlier is that there had to be a better way. And I grew up in Kansas City, but on the north side of Kansas City, there's a lot of hobby farms. There's people raising animals and things like that. And there's also a fair amount of hunting. And so I grew up doing all the outdoor things, camping, hunting, fishing, all that sort of stuff. And as a teen, even sitting in a deer stand, lots and lots and lots of deer in the city. And I thought there had to be a better way, something that I could do. But it wasn't until I was in my 20s, I read an article about someone doing what I do now, and I just contacted them and followed the path that they had already taken to start this program. As far as, like these guys said, what keeps me going, because I'm frequently tired. I started this program in 2001. It's not my primary job. I deliver mail to pay my mortgage and buy my food. For many years, I didn't get paid at all. But I get a lot of thank you notes. And when I read the impact that I have, then I tell my wife that we need to do it again. And she's like, okay, fine, we'll do it again. But one of the things that I didn't really expect, we impact Kansas in a lot of different ways, be it trying to manage deer to auto accidents on the highway, or crop damage for farmers, or the most basic of feeding our friends and neighbors. But I've had a couple of calls where I'll get a senior person say, now I can take my grandson hunting. His family doesn't eat deer meat, but I can donate it and do something good. And that was something that I didn't really expect. But it's an impact that stuck with me.
I know you said the thank you notes, but you also said it's not your full-time job. So outside of, are those thank you notes and just knowing who you're serving and the impact that you've made, is that why you get up and do it every day?
We also talked a lot earlier. Grassroots is really the key. And Beth and I were talking about actually going to the pantries and seeing the people that you're assisting. Very early on, I went to a rescue mission, and they were recent parolees from prison, and it was like 12 to 15 men. And they got bags with underwear and razors in it, and they had nothing and no one. And so the little bit of help I was doing, I thought, you know, it gives you a big dose of humility. And you think, I'm certainly blessed. And I know there's a lot of people that aren't blessed as much as I am. And so, you know, you when you're out there, you know, on the ground, and you go to the places, again, as Katie said, go to the pantries. And one is not the same as the next one. It'll impact you.
Thank you. So thank you guys for sharing those stories. It, again, really hits the highlight and the heart of why we do the work we do, why you guys do the work that you do. So one thing that has stood out about your programs, really the theme truly of the day, was meeting people exactly where they're at. So I'm going to start this question with Solomon Valley Transportation, but I know you kind of touched on this a little bit, but can you go into a little bit more detail about how that reliable transportation has opened doors for them?
So when we got started in 2000, I started the going to the KDOT meetings to get the federal and state grant funding knowledge, and you have to join your CTD, your area region group of people that do general public transportation in order to apply for the grant. So I started going to those meetings in 2010, and we applied for our grant, the first one, and we started July 1st, 2011. And just a week after we started, we got a phone call from a resident, somebody who was a lifetime resident. Her husband had passed away, and she was on dialysis. Now, we don't offer dialysis in Beloit. There was at that time dialysis being offered in Concordia, which is 30 miles east of us. Sorry, I know my directions. And anyway, also in Salina. So this particular lady called, and she had moved from Beloit 2 weeks before we started driving. And she called and said she would have never left her home if she'd have known that she could have gotten to dialysis in Concordia and still stayed in her home. And that really hit hard for us. And so we really worked hard to get that message out. We really worked hard to get the desire and the availability out there. We started with a bus and a van, and that was it. And we just wanted to keep growing. So knowing that we can help those people stay in their home, that's the biggest thing, is just stay in their home and still get to where they need to go. And we provided a lot of dialysis trips, lots of dialysis trips. And that's important for those people that are on dialysis. That's a life-saving thing. It's not going to get your blood pressure checked. You have to have your dialysis treatments. So that's what it was for us.
That meeting them where they're at is so key. As Leanne said, we are 3 counties. We're Jewell County, Mitchell County, and Osborne County. And for each of them, where they are inclined to go is a different direction. For Beloit people, Mitchell County, they go to Salina for a lot of their medical, for their cancer treatments, etc. The Osborne people, it's closer for them to go to Hayes. And for the Jewell people, it's closer for them to go to Hastings and Grand Island, Nebraska, or Lincoln for surgeries, etc., things like that. So again, it's very important that SVT be able to take them where they need to go. And again, personal example, I'm a freak of nature. I've had 3 hips done. Now, you do the math. But the last one was they've all been in Lincoln, and our son took us up on the weekend, and then the surgery was Monday, but you got to stay because they want to check you out. And SVT on Friday came up and got me and brought me back to Beloit. So those are just typical examples of where you are. SVT wants to be able to get you, pick you up, take you where you need to go.
Before we move on, I did want to say One thing Leanne hasn't shared with you, meeting people where they're at and building a program and being invested, is that she was a driver. So not only did she work and advocate and put this together and work, but she was a driver. She started out as that, and as her program grew, she could step back. So I don't think she gives herself enough credit for that. So
Thank you.
And then again, just the importance truly of staying within your community. Aging services is something that's been, my focus. And so I've always thought, it's super important to be able to stay in your community where you feel like you have people. And so that's what they're helping folks do, especially in rural Kansas. Because if you're moving for a service, sometimes you're not moving just one county. You're moving half a state away. And then you've lost access to all of those support systems that kept you at home. So thank you guys. I'm going to go to Tony next on this one. And Tony, how do you make sure that the donated meat gets to the people in places that need it most?
Trust.
Yep.
Okay. When I started this program, I worked with a network, and 3 of the volunteers with me were part of the NRCS National Resource Conservation. But over time, they lost their budget and they all lost their jobs. And so at this point, after 20 plus years, 24 years, I trust in the meat processors to coordinate most of the things that happen in their communities. If we've worked with them for a long time, it's no problem. Even if they're new, they're already getting calls from pantries about donations. And so in those communities, they know agencies that are in their communities already. It's quite difficult for me in Northeast Kansas to drive to Dodge on a regular basis. I fill the void wherever needed, but I usually trust them to take care of things at the local point.
One of the things Tony shared with me this morning, which I didn't know, I asked, how do they decide where the meat goes? And what he said, unless you want to share that, but what he shared is that
I don't know what I said.
The meat packing. So it stays within the community. So if someone is donating it in Garden City and it's that processor that's processing it, then that meat usually stays within that community. So it's not being processed in one place and shipped to people that are not in that community. So it does trickle down and try to stay within the same community of where the donation and processing happened. So Miss Vickie, how does something as simple as having the right kitchen tools empower people to take charge of their daily life?
Well, think about when any of us go to cook. You have to have the match, right, to complete it. You have to have the pots, the pans, the knife, the whatever that matches up with the food you have. So if you picture people that barely have enough dollars or making choices between whether they get medications or buy food or going to the pantry, their food choices are having to be managed by what they have to prepare with at home. So we kind of had an aha moment several years ago, and that's how we started this program. It was a bunch of us going, wait a minute, there's a gap here that we need to fill. So I want you to think about people pick up a lot of peanut butter, whether it's at the grocery store or in the pantry, and maybe one of the reasons is not just they and their children like it, but because they don't have what they need to do some other things. So then people begin to fall in a gap of driving through McDonald's or wherever it might be. It's the grab and go pickup because I'm tired, I'm working 2 shifts, but it's also because they've lost that ability to have dialogue, to gather around the kitchen like we all like to do and talk and cook together and eat together. We lose that. So what we find is when you put these types of tools back in front of people, you take that hierarchy of needs from just this basic need, right? And it starts to go up till you get to that self-fulfillment. You're getting to an achievement level, a self-confidence, a self-autonomy level where people are feeling good about themselves. And the food skills in there is amazing. So the tools are a big deal, whether people are purchasing food or getting it in the pantry. Another quote, I got to give you this quote because I love them because we do these surveys. People watch TV and they want to be like others. So we often get quotes where it says, oh, I felt like a network or Food Network star. because I had more than one knife. I had pots and pans, and they tell the social service folks all these cool stories. So see what that did? That took that from a basic need, it just moved it up. And then another one, really quickly, is we got this story shared with us about a little boy and little girl kept asking mom if they couldn't please bring a friend home after school and then stay for dinner. And she repeatedly told them no, and that it was primarily because they ate off of paper plates or napkins. They had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and she was embarrassed. She felt bad. Once she got Kitchen Restore basics and started getting other foods, she let her kids bring home someone on occasion. I want you to think about what that did to those children's feeling and how the mom felt. So it is about dignity and lots of things more than just food correcting the issue.
That was a great response. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to be starting with Tony on this one. You kind of alluded to it with your last answer, but as we think about the impact of all of the efforts in the theme of today, none of this would occur without trust, right? Trust and collaboration among organizations or people. So you talked about trust in your last question, but what I'd like you to expand on is, have you found that building relationships with other people is actually more impactful than you actually being in person? So if you'll just share on your relationships, like you said, you are primarily Northeast Kansas, but your services, you depend on other people. So can you explain how you built that and what that means?
I would say it's critical.
Yep.
Logistically, I can't do it all. And so I need people in all the communities, but I also need partners in lots of different agencies or, communities and civic groups, because I'm primarily one person, yeah. And it's a lot to do, but I can administer it. But all of that is critical. Yeah.
One of the things Tony also shared with me, and then even up here on the stage, but part of the things that they had to jump hoops to be able to do, right? Logging where the meat came from and there's just certain documentation that had to be put in place for this program to exist. So what type of coaching leadership did you put in place to your processors to ensure that they were following appropriate standards so that your work could continue?
Let's say that's fluid.
Okay.
I touched with them a little bit earlier that there are programs around the country that do what I do, and now we've started annual conferences, and many of them have exponentially better records than I do, and most of it's not my fault. It's surprising across the entire state the things technologically, the hurdles that we have to deal with. I've had meat processors say, I don't have documents, can you fax them to me? No, I cannot. I could scan it, I could email it. No, we don't really do that. Or my wife has one, but she checks it once a month. I have a processor who's Amish, and they have one community phone. If I want to speak to him, I have to leave a message at his father's furniture store. It's all
back to meeting people exactly where they are.
Right.
Because that sounds like it's a lot of hoops you have to jump, but yet you're still continuing to jump through those so that community can be served.
Well, and as we touched on earlier, I didn't realize this until recently. I've been married about, 23 years. And about a month ago, my wife admitted to me that there are some things that she accepts she cannot do. I don't see things that way. I just look for a different path to it or through it. And she just accepts she can't do it. And so with any of these hurdles, I'm just like, okay, how do we get through it? And the first meeting that I went to was Emporia, and there were several people from Kansas Wildlife and Parks, because they're a huge governing body over what we do. And they wanted this documentation, and they wanted that documentation, and law enforcement wanted this, and people started to argue, and I said, why are you arguing? Just give them what they want. Simple. Write up the documents they want, the way they want them, and let's move forward. And that's what we did.
Very good. So Vickie, I'm going to come to you with the same question, but have you found building relationships can be just as impactful as the actual service that you provide?
Definitely. Our service couldn't happen if it wasn't a mutual trust between us and our partners. Because we're a third party. If you think about that, we don't directly ever, unfortunately, sadly, but I get it, we don't ever get to meet these families. We just hear through the grapevine. But the most effective, efficient way is through these social service agencies, because they're already doing intakes. They're already helping these people with all their other issues. We're a bunch of volunteers. So we don't have the skills to do all of that. So we have to have a trust that they want to be sure that we're going to deliver the kits, we're going to customize them, we'll do it timely. We're not going to one time say we're going to show up on Friday at 9 and then we don't do it. But we also have to have their trust, too, that they can't order 15 kits by tomorrow morning. We don't have that type of volunteer system, and we certainly don't have the funds. So I think it is very, very important to have that. And once you have that, then you can sit down and have conversation about what do we need to tweak? What do we need to change? How do we need to adapt? Because this thing has grown and changed. And we do that together. And I think that adds to the sustainability, and it makes it more able to be replicated and duplicated other places as well.
Thank you. So now Leanne and Jay, very similar question as well. As you guys started small and then you expanded, that took creative thinking and collaboration. So how did your expansion look like? How did you reach how did you get the people you needed at the table to the table so that you could successfully expand?
So we had, at the hospital where I work, they had started like a capital campaign. We were getting ready to do some major renovations. And we had community focus groups and had a gentleman that came in and kind of oversaw kind of what she's doing and asked questions, and then the communities came together, and aside from the healthcare needs, the number one thing that everybody requested was better transportation system. So we, at the hospital, the CEO, myself, and the foundation, we sat down and we started just brainstorming. And we brought the nursing home director from across the street, the nursing home owner, to the table. And we brought the Beloit Medical Center, like the office manager, to the table. And we just really brainstormed and just threw ideas up on the board of who we wanted to bring to the table in order to write the grant, in order to ask for federal and state dollars. You have to bring dollars to the table. You have to have a local match. And what I had learned up to that point was there were several other communities across the state of Kansas that also did general public transportation, but their local match came from the city, or their local match came from the county and nobody else, or it came from the hospital. And so because their local match was one entity, that entity decided where they went and how far out. And some transportations didn't leave the city. You can't really provide transportation to people if you're not willing to meet them where they're at and take them where they need to go. And so we didn't want the what's the word I want to say? We didn't want the burden to be on one entity for that local match. So we brought the city together, the Council on Aging, the Beloit Medical Center, the hospital, everybody we could think of, the pharmacy, the local pharmacy in town. They became a stakeholder for us. And we just went to those entities, those different community partners, and even individuals, and said, if you would be willing to pledge, do say a 5-year pledge or a 3-year pledge, we don't want the burden to be on anybody. So in your budgetary means, what does that look like for you? And for some, it could be $1,000 a year for 5 years. For others, it could be $100 a month for 5 years. They couldn't do a lump sum, but they could do $100 a month. Whatever it was, we were willing to take that. We were willing to work with them, and they sat at our table, and they helped us devise our policies. Because the beauty of KDOT and FTA is they give you the funds, but you can decide how far you want to go. We started out only going just like to Salina and Wichita, just because we didn't know for sure what that would look like for our budget. And you're writing a budget from scratch, basically. It's a guess, and by golly, that's all you're doing. And we had to hire drivers. Like she said, I had a full-time job at the hospital. I'm the administrative assistant. For those of you that know what those people do, trust me, that was a lot. And I drove, and I answered the phone. So I had a Bluetooth speaker in one ear for transportation, and I had a Bluetooth speaker in the other ear for my office phone. And I confused a lot of people. I confused a lot of people when I would be in my office answering the phone for one or the other. And somebody would walk in and say, Leanne, and I'm like, oh, wait, nope. I'd point to my ear because I'm on the phone, right? So we brought those people together, and that's how we started out. And then as we got further into our program, then we started going even further. And initially, we didn't cross the state lines. But as we brought Jewell County on board, we worked with KDOT, we worked with FTA, we got the necessary funding, we figured out what we needed to do to get it to happen. And now we can go clear into Nebraska, Omaha, we can go wherever we want to go. That's how it works. Yep.
Prior to SVT, the public transportation worked out of the senior center. And we had the big bus, big being 13 passenger, and we had a husband and wife driver team. And I am or was the chair of the Beloit Senior Center. And our driver got sick, and his wife had already been sick. And so one of the other board members and myself, we were the drivers. And we were not being paid. And so when SVT from the hospital started making suggestions and looking for things to really build something big, we were extremely excited, because that really wasn't how I wanted to spend my time, even though it was enjoyable. If you've ever been the bus driver for those people, they absolutely are just overwhelmed almost that you are taking them where they need to go. And so it's very gratifying, but that's, when I retired, that wasn't what I had in mind, if that gives you an idea. So we were glad to do that. We still are the biggest financial contributor, in that we contribute about $30,000 a year through our mill levy for senior funds. And that has been huge. And as they got, as she said, the hospital, the clinic, both nursing homes, the druggist, and everyone else involved, all of a sudden it became easier to get other people involved, to get other business involved. At first they were a little bit hesitant that, oh my gosh, you're maybe taking people out of town to Concordia, and while they're there, they might go to Walmart. But they eventually came to the realization that if you keep them in town, you will get your share of their business. They might go to Walmart in Concordia or Walmart in Salina, but if they're in town, they're going to go to the grocery store, they're going to go to the dentist, they're going to go to the drugstore, and it became less and less of an issue. And as more and more businesses got involved, so did more and more of the general public. It's still one of the, quote, best kept secrets, which is not our goal, but by the same token, our people in the community that are our stakeholders understand the need, understand the importance, and understand their role in making sure that it's available. And like myself, they want it there when it's their time, to be elderly or not being able to drive or whatever. So that's really huge that they develop the trust with the business community, with the patrons, and with the SVT group, that we can offer them something that can be very, very beneficial to them.
So I think we've kind of alluded to some of this in our conversation already, but collaboration, creativity, and relational trust do open doors, does help us to succeed, but every community effort comes with a challenge. So I would like you guys to discuss some of the challenges that you faced and those creative ways that you've overcame them, or if you're still struggling with one and maybe need some ideas of how you can overcome it. So I'm going to start with Vickie on this one.
Well, our biggest challenge is we have become everyone's Goodwill or trash company at times. We get everything from people's blue jeans and curtains to shot glasses, and I never saw any of those on our list of can-take items. But we have volunteers that get it. So if you've seen the pictures that are floating up there, and we see them down here, I should have taken one because we have one little room where it says trash, recycle, Goodwill. And so our volunteers just go, oh, Lord, they just put it in the right thing, and we don't even complain about it. But just know if you want to duplicate this program, that's what's going to happen. Because in trying to reach out to community, even though I think we have the strategies to try to share and get people to understand what we need, and we get them to try to focus on, we're trying to do basic kitchen tools, essentials, people, the basics they need to prepare, to cook, and store and consume food. But somehow it turns into blue jeans, curtains, and shot glasses, so I don't know. Creative, we thought we were really creative in that we put a couple of little outside sheds in key locations so people could do a 24/7 drop-off. Because if people, it's just like if people can only shop at a pantry for 2 hours on Monday, people have busy lives. If they're going to drop off things for us, they need, an open, lots of space to do it. That did not work. One time, a volunteer opened the door and a homeless person jumped out. So people were getting, sleeping in our sheds. We had people pilfering through them. We moved it to a different location, put shelving in it so it would be difficult to sleep in it. Somebody stole everything in it and all the shelves. We got rid of that idea. What we do now is it's at our drop-off is at the local extension office, which is very prominent location because it's in where everybody pays their taxes, gets their car tags, whatever. Everybody knows where that is. And so it's like, there's where it is. And then if you also need a pickup and you have a large amount of stuff, we will come and do it. So if we have, say, a senior citizen is downsizing, going to move into Meadowlark, which is a retirement home here, we will go to their home, and we aren't going to go through their whole house, but if they've got their things packaged up, we can show them what we can take. So we've done a lot of strategies, and it's still not perfect. But you just have to be humorous and just know that people are trying to help us.
That's a good way. They're trying to help. They're trying to do what's right. And so by shaming them, then they may stop. So you just take it and keep moving on. So, Jay and Leanne, I'll ask you guys the same thing. Challenges, and then the ways that you've overcame it.
Some of the biggest challenges when we started, we were basically an 8 to 5, maybe 7:30, but we found out that some of the people want to go places that we need to leave before that. We're going to get back after that. So we've expanded, and with the consent of the drivers, sometimes they leave at 7 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes they don't get back till 6. We also are just 5 days a week. That's a challenge. We've got especially church people. We've got weddings, grandparents wanting to go visit a grandchild or whatever on the weekend. And so those are still challenges we're trying to deal with. But one of the things we're trying to do, the senior center took on the hospital's Meals on Wheels program. We already had our own through North Central Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging, as was talked about earlier today. They have a Meals on Wheels program, and so did the hospital. But when COVID hit, the hospital had to give theirs up. And so we took it over. Well, all of a sudden, we're looking at a whole bunch more meals than we were doing before. So we are in the process, hopefully, of trying to get a new senior center. Well, to make it more feasible and to be able to address some of these other issues, we have also worked with the food pantry and with the economy shop, which is a thrift shop, to come into the same facility. Because as has been brought out so many times today, one issue actually opens the door to several. And not only those, but Flint Hills is looking to put a case manager in our facility, and our Regional Medical Foundation is looking to put a group called Coordinated Care who takes care of getting people with their computer paperwork, with their insurance forms, with their laundry, all sorts of things, and give them both offices in the facility as well, with the idea that SVT can bring somebody to our facility, they can have a meal, they can go to, and it's those that know the area agency, it's a suggested donation. So if they don't feel like they have adequate funds, they can eat for free. They can go to the food pantry. They can go to the economy shop and maybe stop at one of the two offices to get some more help. And SVT can make that possible because it can bring all of them to that one facility. So that's our goal. If any of you out there are looking for a place to donate a big chunk, talk to me.
Hey, I can talk to Tony too. All right, Tony, same question. So challenge it. Or Leanne, did you want to add?
On the challenge to overcome some of those challenges, so when you have the family that lives far away from where the loved ones live there in Beloit, since we don't do weekends, just for a lot of logistical reasons right now, we will and have and do take Grandma Ann to Lawrence and drop her off on a Wednesday, and then come home, and then we go back the following Wednesday and pick up Grandma Ann and bring her home. So she's been able to spend the whole week with her family, see her grandchildren's events, plays, sports events, whatever it is, and her daughter or son could continue working, and they didn't have to take 2 days off from work to drive Grandma Ann back home or go pick her up and then take her back home. We are able to do that. So that's some of the hurdles that we've been able to work around, and how can we get this accomplished, and what do we need to do? So that's one of them.
So our challenge has always been funding, but we have overcome it, and then it becomes a problem again, and then we overcome it, and then it becomes a problem again. When I first started this program, I had a ton of energy and was practically unstoppable. So the first year, with the other volunteers, we had a budget of like $389, and we were excited to go speak to the meat processors near where we lived. And we had a goal of getting 10 deer donated, and we got like 189, and we were $10,000 in the hole. And that's when I learned a couple of lessons very quickly. For one, the power of the media and getting out in the public. And so getting deer for our program, never a problem. I got 3 calls today of people wanting to donate deer. But when I was $10,000 in the hole that year, I wrote an article. It was in the Kansas Wildlife and Parks magazine. An oil man in Topeka donated $10,000, paid it off. But I didn't want to be in that situation again. But I still had a lot of fire. And so the Kansas Wildlife Department has a governing body over them, which is the Kansas Wildlife and Parks Commission. And those first couple of years, you'd be surprised what you can get if you show up to like 6 meetings in a row all across the state. I drove 4 hours to Osborne, spoke for 15 minutes, and then drove 4 hours home. And after about 6 of those sorts of things, because they go in every corner, I think every quarter they move, they said, please get him some funding. and so we put together some legislation where hunters could donate $2 or more when they buy their license. And that has helped with that funding. Now things have kind of stabilized and my energy slowed down. I've kind of coasted for a while, but now I'm going to retire from my primary job in about 3.5 years, and I hope to reignite that fire and this be my primary job again. One of the hurdles that I was just thinking about is that when I had all of that fire, I established a lot of relationships, and many of those people have retired. And now I don't have those relationships. And so it's very hard to just track down who you're supposed to talk to, because I used to talk to the head of the Department of Ag, or the head of this, or the head of that department. They don't know who I am now. And so it's much harder, and I'll have to rebuild those relationships if that's my goal moving ahead. But if you have enough longevity, people retire, or people die, or people move on, or you just have to build more relationships again. You can't just coast forever. So.
I think one of the big themes of today is pivoting. Everybody up here, none of them quit when things got hard. They pivoted, they figured it out, and they're successful. So we are at our 10-minute mark, and I do want to leave some time for anybody out there to ask questions. So I think I will go to just this question, and this is a leave in action. Most of our sessions today have had a leave in action theme, and so that's where I'd like to leave us. So I'm going to just start with Vickie, and we'll make our way down. But what is one simple thing that you can suggest to folks that are in the audience today that they can do tomorrow or next week to advance health equity within their own neighborhoods and for their own neighbors? I know.
Well, think about your own situation and where you might jump in. Where's your heart? Where's your passion? What do you have time for? Don't try to do 20. You and I should never get together because, yeah, we'll talk.
Yeah.
Because once you have that fire, you can't give it up. And related to like what we're doing, when you clean out your pantry, make sure your stuff goes somewhere, not to the landfill. Just find a space. The other thing I'd say is, where can you connect and collaborate? Whether you have a food and farm council, whether you have a coalition that does health things, where? So find somewhere to connect and collaborate related to your heart and passion, related to community health, and just find a space to be a tiny bit involved. You'll feel better for it.
I like the fact that you said passion. So find something you're passionate, but also finding something that you have time to dedicate yourself to. I think a lot of times folks dedicate too much and they get burned out and then they lose that fire. So thank you.
Yeah, I want to just reiterate what Vickie just said. You have to have a board that is passionate for what you're doing. Doesn't matter what it is, you have to have a board that sees the need, that's more than willing to go out, beat on doors, talk to people, get them to donate, sell them on the concept of what you're doing, and then back it up with performance. Because if you're doing that, then it goes back to that trust factor. They will be willing to share. People, it shows all the time, whether it be national disasters, whether projects that needed completed, whatever. People are willing to contribute their time, even their money, if they see that this is a worthwhile cause and that these people are sold and believe in what they're doing. And you have to make sure that you do the same thing, and as that takes place, then your project is going to complete. And you don't look at the project for now or 5 years from now. I want it there for myself. Hopefully I'm going to age a little longer. But for the people that are drivers now or whatever, as they get older, they want it there for them too. 30 years from now, 40 years from now, we hope SVT is still a viable product in our area.
Most definitely. Most definitely, I want it there when I need it. I don't want to be a burden to my kids. But as far as doing something for your neighbor or your friend, when it comes to transportation, line up a ride and pay for it. You know, it's a suggested donation. So if we charge, believe it or not, $1. We ask suggested donation $1.50 per ride in the county. And if we're going to take you from Beloit to Salina to Wichita to Kansas City, we ask for $4 each direction. Okay? So line up a ride, go with somebody. It's absolutely amazing. It really is. So just buy a punch card or something like that. That would be a way to give back.
And there's public transportation in every one of our, most all of our communities. So it is something that anybody can do. So thank you. And Tony, same question.
Oh, I would just say real quick, you know, find your passion and do it locally. You know, if you want to donate to feed cats, do it in your community. Don't give it to some larger corporation where the funds are going to get lost. Spend your time and your dollars locally. It goes a lot farther.
Can I say one more
I
related,
suppose.
please, just really quick, related to food because of all the things that have been said today. How many of us go to a local coffee shop and spend $5 or $6 on a beverage and then we get the muffin, it's another $4. You spend $10 to $12. I know hamburger is $6 a pound right now, and my family farm is sucking eggs because of it. It's terrible. But you know what? I can give up a coffee a week and a muffin a week, and that can go to purchasing food for a pantry or whatever. So somebody can have that hamburger. So I'm just challenging all of us, if you have the means to do that, consider whether it's a soda pop or a coffee once a week. What could we each do, and what kind of difference would it make? So thanks for letting me say that.
Absolutely, it was great. So thank you guys. I want to thank all of you for taking time to be with us today, for sharing your passion, your creativity, your vision. Again, you've shown us that by meeting people where they are, that we can truly meet them, get trust, meet them, you know, compassion, and give them the right tools that we can really help them succeed. And again, that holistic care, being a whole person, meeting all of them. So I want to thank our audience for staying with us today. We are at the close. I think we may have some time for some questions. But I challenge you to carry what you've heard today, and not just this session, but all day. We've had some excellent topics today. So take what you've heard and take that back into your community and start small. So with that, thank you. Do we have some time for questions? A couple of minutes? Does anybody have questions for these 3 or 4? I got it.
Thank you. I have the pleasure of sitting with 2 of the panelists, and so I'm super excited to talk to them again afterwards. But would you all be willing to share your contact information with us? And do you have toolkits available to share on how you started, like ground up?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we are firm believers in don't reinvent the wheel. So we are more than happy and have been asked by other communities of what we did, how we got started. And yeah, I'm happy to do that. Yeah, we'll walk you through what we need to do. Yep.
And the last slide has everybody's contacts. You guys will get that. We put all of that on there for you because we knew it was going to be a short session, and we wanted you to be able to follow up with them. Any other questions?
I have a different one. As far as the meat processing, do you just, because they're online.
Well, I'm so loud, I just figured I'd
I
had a question in regards to the meat processing, because with the deer meat, you know, there's so many different ways. You can do ground, you can do jerky. Is there, I'm assuming one way is cheaper to process than the other. What is like your standard when
1 or 2
you're,
pound packages of ground.
okay,
I do get calls, like one of them this morning. This person had already had it processed for himself, so there'll probably be some roast in there and things like that. And, you know, I don't treat it any different. It's just easier at the pantry level if it's all the same. And so we do 1 or 2 pound packages of ground.
My question's for you as well, and this is just a recent personal experience. So do you work with law enforcement, particularly for deer that are hit or have to be put down on the side of the road?
No.
I hit it.
It's liability.
Yeah, well, I hit a deer recently, and
Everybody else too?
no, it's not. But where I was going with that is, you know, I grew up in a family of hunters. My grandfather was fishing game, so a lot of conservation. And the fact that I was worried that deer was going to go to waste, and the highway patrolman who had to put it down said, "No, we work with organizations that donate it. It's fine." But I got to thinking, like, if there was some awareness of an organization like yours, if outside liability, I would have totally paid for the processing and tried to get a tag and donated that if there was a means for me to have done that.
That might have been possible if you had a tag and you had it processed.
I mean, I don't know how I would have field dressed it, but that's a different story for a different day.
Well, because of liability, they have to go through a licensed inspected processing
Okay, so
facility.
they do have some relationships that they can, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
So historically, Highway Patrol handles tags for deer hit on the highway. I read an article this past week where Douglas County is doing a program, and they said that they donate some of the meat. I'm not aware that they do that. And I'm kind of the only game in town. So
Well, that's why he was very adamant, because I was devastated, and my 17-year-old is sobbing on the side of the highway that, no, it's gonna, we work with local organizations or something, and I didn't even question it. But I would have totally tried to pull a tag, and I'd have found somebody, and I'd have paid for the processing.
Okay, so I recently hit a deer as well. and in my 26 years of being married, I've managed to murder three vehicles. My husband loves me to pieces. God love him. Anyway, the last deer I hit, I managed to walk away all 3 times unscathed. It's a miracle from God. But the deer I hit this time was a buck. Pretty nice little buck. About this time of the year, a couple years ago. And the cop that stopped me, or not stopped me, but stopped to help me, he asked me if I wanted the deer. I grew up eating deer. My husband would have killed me if I'd have said yes. But before we left the scene, there was somebody there to pick it up. So I think that they use it to feed their animals, like people that raise dogs and things like that. That's what they use the deer along the side of the road. Juan?
There are also people very much interested in it. But my understanding is oftentimes the Highway Patrol has a list
Yes.
of people in that community, and they have to tag it and things like that.
Yeah.
But because we're an entity, we don't want to get sued and those sorts of things, and we have liability questions. We don't accept them because of that. Sorry.
No.
Also.
Mine's not really a question, just kind of want to say my value to that transportation piece. So I'm one who has an adult child with a disability. She has Down syndrome, and she's very independent. And we utilize that service. So, of course, it's very limited availability in our community. Usually her work times were not available. Luckily, she had a job that really worked to give her hours that worked with the transportation, and now she uses the transportation 4 days a week so she can go to her job, and she gets that independence, not being dependent on her brother or her mom or her dad to pick her up, and all those things are huge for her. Also, that's just giving her the confidence that here in the next year or two she might be able to live on her own. So we're baby stepping those things, but Luckily, I do work for KFMC, and for a while I did have to transport her to work, and I was able to do that. But it is very difficult, and that allows me to work because of that service. So it is a huge asset to our communities. So thank you for that.
We do have some of our clients that do have handicapped children that they like have a school program or a work program that we have to take them to a whole nother town, and we do that, absolutely, 100%. We work with them. Yep.